My name is Hannah Brooks. I'm 34 years old. And for 16 years, I wore a uniform that my own family never once asked me about. 16 years in the United States Army. 2 deployments overseas. A rank I earned the hard way, promotion board after promotion board, while my family back home built a different kind of life, one that never seemed to have room for me in it. Let me take you back to where this really started. I grew up in a small town outside Asheville, North Carolina, in a house with a porch that creaked and a grandfather clock in the hallway that ticked louder at night than during the day. My father, Walter Brooks, opened a little hardware store when I was a child. 1 shelf of nails. 1 dream of something bigger. By the time I was in middle school, that 1 shelf had become a real storefront. Brooks Lumber and Supply. My father walked through those aisles like he owned the whole town, not just the building. My mother, Diane, kept the books. And at dinner, at church, even while tucking me into bed, she had one line she repeated like a prayer. This store is our future, Hannah. Don't ever forget that. I was 12 years old, and I already understood that my comfort was somehow tied to inventory numbers I didn't understand. My younger brother, Caleb, was 3 years behind me, but by the time he was 14, he was already working the register. My father took him to supplier meetings. Let him sit in on conversations with the accountant. Taught him how to negotiate. When I asked if I could help that summer too, my father smiled at me, the kind of smile that closes a door so gently you don't even hear it shut. You focus on school, sweetheart. Caleb needs this more. He never raised his voice. He didn't have to. He just quietly rearranged the room until there was no chair left for me. I remember standing by the front door one evening, my hand resting on the cold brass doorknob, listening to my father in the next room, teaching Caleb about profit margins like it was scripture. I didn't walk back in. I went upstairs instead, and started looking up Army recruiters on the family computer. There was only one person who ever asked me what I wanted. My grandfather, Arthur Brooks. He lived alone in a small cabin at the edge of our property, separated from the main house by a gravel path and an old wooden fence he built with his own hands. To the rest of the family, he was just the old man who grows tomatoes. Nobody asked him anything else. Nobody thought there was anything else to ask. One evening, the summer before my senior year, I sat with him on his porch and told him I was thinking about enlisting. He didn't panic. He didn't lecture me. He just rocked back in his chair and asked, quiet and steady, "What branch, Hannah?" "Army," I said. He nodded slowly, like I'd just confirmed something he already knew was coming. "Good," he said. "It made a man out of me. I think it'll make something out of you too." That cabin smelled like cedar wood and gun oil. And for reasons I couldn't explain back then, it felt like the only place on that entire property where I was allowed to simply exist, without earning my place first. I signed my enlistment papers 3 months later. My father sat at the kitchen table that night and said absolutely nothing. My mother cried in the hallway and told me I was abandoning the family. Caleb, 15 years old and already wearing a store polo to school, just shrugged. "More room for me," he said. The morning I left for basic training, my grandfather was the only one who came outside to see me off. He pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. "His phone number. Call me," he said, "when you need someone who'll actually listen." I called him every single Sunday for the next 16 years. 16 years sounds short when you say it out loud. It isn't. Basic training. Specialized schooling, where I discovered the Army runs on paperwork just as much as it runs on anything else. My first posting overseas, where I learned I had a strange gift for finding the few cents that made an entire ledger refuse to balance. 2 deployments into hostile territory, where I managed payroll for hundreds of soldiers while supply lines went dark and communication cut out for days at a time. I never lost a single dollar. Not one. I climbed the ranks the slow, unglamorous way. And on my own time, off duty, I built something nobody asked me to build, a financial literacy program for young enlisted soldiers and their families. I taught them how to budget, how to escape predatory loans, how to read the fine print that was designed to trap them. I wasn't paid for it. I didn't need to be. I just couldn't stand watching people drown in the same water I knew how to swim in. And every single month, on the 1st, I sent $400 home to my parents. I told myself it was for the house. If I'm honest, it was for the hope that someone would finally notice me. Every visit home, the store looked a little thinner, a little quieter, fewer cars in the lot. Caleb, meanwhile, drove a new truck every couple of years, and at dinner my parents discussed his vision for the business while I got one polite question. So, how's the army? Then the conversation moved on without me. The last time I visited before everything changed, I found a foreclosure notice buried in a stack of mail on the kitchen counter. My father called me at 2 in the morning, not long after. I had never once heard that man, so I did. I restructured the loan, set up automatic payments straight from my account. Over $1,000 a month, every month, for 5 years. I stopped buying coffee. I ate cheaper. I didn't do it for leverage. I didn't think I'd ever need proof of what I'd done. I did it because my father was drowning, and I happened to know how to swim. We'll sort out the deed later. Nobody ever brought it up again, and I was too busy keeping the house standing to argue about whose name was actually on the paperwork. For 5 years, I managed that house from 4 hours away. I reviewed the tax assessments, renewed the insurance, coordinated every repair, a new roof, a new water heater, fresh paint on the trim, through phone calls on lunch breaks and emails sent late at night after my volunteer classes ended. Caleb lived in that house rent-free the entire time. He never paid a utility bill, never mowed the lawn. Every Christmas, my mother handed me a list of things that needed fixing the moment I walked through the door. You're just so handy, sweetie. Caleb's been so busy. I fixed the faucet. I sealed the cracks. I polished the old brass doorknob until it gleamed, over and over, visit after visit. I counted once, 53 times in 5 years, I polished that same doorknob. Nobody ever noticed. One evening, going through public business filings out of habit, I found something that turned my stomach. Caleb had taken out a high-interest cash advance against the store, tens of thousands of dollars, at an interest rate that bordered on predatory. And when I called to warn my father, his voice went cold. Caleb knows what he's doing. Don't be jealous because he's here and you're not. I tried calling my brother directly. He didn't pick up. His text back was 4 words. Mind your own business. I spoke to an attorney quietly, just to understand my options. She told me something I already suspected. Because my name was on the deed and the mortgage, the house legally couldn't be sold or transferred without my signature. I wrote down everything I'd need to file a legal claim if it ever came to that. I never did. I didn't want to fight my family in a courtroom. I wanted them to simply see me. They never did. The call came in spring. My mother's voice had that particular tone she used when she wanted something wrapped in obligation instead of love. It's the big family reunion this year, sweetie. Your father has a special announcement. Please come. I asked what the announcement was. She deflected, the way she always did. It's a surprise. Something wonderful for the family. 16 years of evidence had already taught me that wonderful for the family almost always meant wonderful for Caleb. I almost said no. I had a class to teach that weekend. I had 100 small excuses lined up like ammunition. Then my grandfather called. His voice was different that day. Sharper. Slower. Deliberate. Come to the reunion, Hannah. I need you there. I waited for an explanation. He didn't give one. Trust me, was all he said. And he was the only person left in that family who had earned the right to ask that of me. I packed one bag and drove 4 hours through the mountains, turning the word announcement over and over in my head the whole way. An engagement, maybe. A store expansion. Or, the house. The closer I got, the more that last thought felt inevitable. I stopped by the old store on the way in, almost out of habit. The parking lot held exactly 3 cars on a Friday afternoon. The paint near the gutters was peeling. One employee sat behind the register, scrolling on his phone, beneath a sale sign that looked like it had been hanging since the previous season. I drove on to the house. From the outside, it looked beautiful, because I had paid for it to look beautiful. Fresh trim. Clean gutters. The old tree my grandmother had planted still full and green in the front yard. I parked behind Caleb's newer truck. walked up the porch steps, rested my hand on that same brass doorknob, still smooth from my own hands. Inside, the grandfather clock ticked exactly the way it always had. Steady, indifferent, counting seconds nobody else in that house was counting. Caleb was on the couch, watching television. He glanced up but didn't stand. "Hey, sis. Mom said you were coming." Like I was a delivery he'd been warned to expect. Upstairs, my old bedroom had become a storage closet. My bed was gone, replaced by a folding cot leaned against the wall. "Your brother needed the closet space," my mother explained from the doorway, already holding a new list of repairs. That night, unable to sleep on that cot, I opened my laptop at 1 in the morning and searched the public business filings one more time. What I found made my stomach drop. It wasn't one cash advance against the store. It was 3. All from different high-interest lenders. All secured against the same inventory and equipment. The total came to well over $300,000. One of them was already in default. I calculated the math quietly in the dark. The store, once you subtracted the debt, was worth less than half what my father believed. And the house, if creditors ever came after my father's personal guarantee on that debt, could end up tangled in all of it too. The house I had spent 5 years and every spare dollar protecting. I closed the laptop. I didn't call anyone. I had warned them once already and been told I was jealous. I wasn't going to beg to be hurt a second time. I simply opened a notes app and wrote everything down. Numbers. Not anger. Just numbers. The morning of the reunion was warm and golden, the kind of June morning that makes the mountains look soft, almost gentle, like the day itself was trying to apologize in advance for what was coming. By 11 o'clock, the backyard was full. Aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, family friends whose connection to us I'd never fully understood. Folding tables. A canopy for shade. Children running circles around the old oak trees. My grandfather sat alone at the farthest table, wearing a faded veteran's cap. I walked over and kissed his cheek. He held my hand a moment longer than usual. "Whatever happens today," he said quietly, "stand tall. That's an order." After lunch, my father stood, tapped a knife against his glass, and the entire yard fell quiet except for the cicadas and one toddler who hadn't learned to read a room yet. "I have an announcement," he said. "Something I've been thinking about for a long time." He talked about the store's history, about hard work, about staying put, like geography itself was a kind of virtue. Then he looked at Caleb, and his whole face softened in a way it never softened for me. Caleb has been right here, every single day, keeping our family's legacy alive. Alive. I knew exactly what that word was hiding. $300,000 in predatory debt. A parking lot with 3 cars on a Friday. But 16 years of military bearing taught me how to keep my face perfectly still. Then my father turned to me. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something colder. Polite. Distant. And Hannah, well, Hannah chose a different path. We respect that. Respect. The word landed on me like a rejection letter. Between the speech and dessert, I slipped into the kitchen for a glass of water. My grandfather followed quietly behind me. "Walk with me," he said. We crossed the gravel path to his cabin in silence. Inside, everything was exactly as it always had been. A narrow bed, a small desk, shelves of military history. "Sit," he told me, pointing to the chair. Then he knelt beside the bed and pulled out an old olive drab trunk. "Open it," he said. Inside, beneath a folded dress uniform I had never once seen him wear, sat medals, bronze stars, a silver star with a Vela device, and photographs of a much younger version of him, standing in jungle so dense the sunlight barely touched the ground. "You were special forces," I whispered. 26 years, he said. 3 wars. Nobody in this family ever thought to ask. Then he lifted a false panel from the bottom of the trunk and revealed a worn leather folder. Inside was a trust document, established under state law, listing rental properties across 4 counties, and an investment portfolio worth, on paper, well over $8 million. I read the number 3 times before it felt real. Grandpa, I can't. He raised a hand. Stop. Listen. His voice carried the same weight it must have carried decades ago, giving orders that meant the difference between someone living or dying. I didn't give you this because you're my granddaughter, he said. I gave it to you because for 16 years, you served. You saved a house that was never legally yours to save. You warned your father about debt he refused to see. You built a program that helps strangers stand on their own 2 feet. You earned this the same way I earned these medals, by showing up when it would have been easier to walk away. He closed the trunk. Go back to the party, he said. Wait for my signal. What signal? He almost smiled. You'll know. I walked back to the reunion on legs that didn't feel entirely my own. My father stood again, raising his glass a second time. The house, he announced, will go to Caleb. He's earned it. He's been here. A scattering of applause. My brother grinned and raised his glass in return. Then my father turned to me, squaring his shoulders the way he always did right before saying something he thought was generous. And Hannah, thank you for saving our house these past 5 years. We couldn't have done it without you. The line landed on 40 people who had no idea what those words actually meant. He said it the way you thank someone for fixing a leaky pipe. A transaction. Complete. Closed. The whole table waited for me to smile, to say you're welcome. Instead, I stood. My father just gave away the house I've been paying for, in front of 40 people, I said, my voice level, the same flat tone I used briefing commanding officers. I refinanced this house 5 years ago using my own loan eligibility. My name is on the deed. My name is on the mortgage. I've made every single payment since. He just gave it to someone else without asking me. The murmuring started immediately. My father's face went pale, then red. That was temporary, Hannah. We agreed. We never agreed on anything, Dad. You asked me to save the house. I did. Then you stopped mentioning it entirely. I laid it all out calmly, the house's real value, the mortgage balance, and then, finally, the 3 hidden cash advances against the store. My father's head snapped toward my brother. What is she talking about, Caleb? Caleb's face crumpled. I was going to pay it back. The store was dying, Dad. I couldn't let it die. And in that moment, I saw something underneath my brother's pride that I hadn't expected. A boy who had spent his whole life trying to earn a nod from a father who only seemed to value the store, never the son standing inside it. It didn't change a single number. But it softened something in me. I'm sorry you were carrying that, Caleb, I said. But it doesn't erase what I've paid. And it doesn't make this house yours. An uncle pulled out his phone right there at the table and confirmed every filing within minutes. My mother went silent, not crying, just silent, staring at her plate like it held the instructions she'd been missing her entire life. That's when my grandfather rose to his feet. Slowly, deliberately, the way old soldiers rise, like the act itself is a statement. Sit down, everyone, he said. I have something to say. Most of you know me as the old man who grows tomatoes, my grandfather began. I served 26 years in this country's military. Special forces. 2 wars most of you weren't even alive for. He paused, letting that land. And for 30 years, I quietly built a trust worth $8.2 million. Your grandmother knew. My attorney knows. Nobody in this family ever bothered to ask. The yard had gone completely silent. The trustee, he continued, the person who controls every decision, every dollar of that trust, is not my son. He turned, slowly, to face me. It's my granddaughter. Sergeant First Class Hannah Brooks. 16 years of honorable service. 2 deployments. Not $1 ever unaccounted for. I didn't choose her because she's family. I chose her because in 16 years, she never once put herself first. My father's chair scraped backward as he stood, face flushed, voice cracking on the number. $8 million, and you gave it all to her. I didn't give her a fortune, Robert, my grandfather said quietly. I gave her a responsibility, because she's the only person at this table who has actually earned one. My mother reached toward me, pleading. Hannah, tell him this isn't right. It's not my decision, Mom, I said gently. It's his. And then, before the silence could turn into something uglier, I spoke again, quietly enough that my father had to stop shouting just to hear me. I'm not selling the house, I said. I'm not filing anything against anyone. The mortgage stays in my name, because I'm the one paying it. When it's paid off, we'll talk about what's fair, as a family, at a table. Not as a performance in front of 40 people. I could have taken everything. I could have forced a sale and walked away. I didn't. The house stayed standing, but on my terms, the terms of the person who had been holding it up the entire time. My grandfather added one final thing before he sat back down. I enrolled in Hannah's financial program 8 months ago, he said. Not because I needed it. Because I wanted to see, with my own eyes, what my granddaughter built with her own hands, for no pay, after every long-duty shift. 300 families helped. Average debt reduced by almost half. You built a store, Robert. She built a lifeline. And you never saw the difference. He slid the worn leather folder across the table to me. It's yours, he said. Every page. Months later, the dust settled the way it always does, slowly, and without a single dramatic flourish. Caleb enrolled in a real debt counseling program. He closed one struggling location and focused on saving the original store. By autumn, it was barely profitable again, but it had stopped bleeding. My father texted me once a week after that. Short messages. How are you? No real conversation. Not yet. But it was something. My mother called every first Sunday of the month. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes we just talked about the weather, or her tomatoes, or nothing at all. I didn't push. I just listened, the way she finally needed to be listened to. My grandfather kept growing tomatoes, kept fixing his fence, kept calling every Sunday, same as always, asking about my program, my soldiers, my life. He never once said I told you so. That wasn't his style. I drove back one weekend in autumn, walked up those same porch steps, rested my hand on that same brass doorknob. Cool, smooth, a little tarnished now. I didn't polish it this time. Someone else would have to learn how to take care of it. The hardest thing I ever learned wasn't how to manage a multi-million-dollar trust, or how to save a house from foreclosure 4 hours away, or even how to stand in front of 40 relatives while my own father pretended I didn't matter. The hardest thing I learned was this. Serving someone never guarantees they'll see you for it. But being unseen never makes what you gave any less real. If there's someone in your life quietly carrying weight nobody else notices, tell them today. Don't wait for a reunion, a trunk, or a stranger's secret to do it for you. By the way, where are you watching this story from? Let us know in the comments. It's incredible to see how far these stories travel around the world. If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories like this one.